Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Harry's Music Room on this continuing deep dive into the Chicago albums featuring Terry Kath. Today's video, we're going to be talking about Chicago 5, which is probably one of my favorite, if you want to call it later eras. It's not really that much later. It was the first album that they released to feature a single record. Up until now, we had three double LPs, and one 4-record live set. This was released in July of 1972. It was actually released on July 10th. On July 12th of 1972, I enlisted in the Air Force right out of high school. And probably on the 14th, I would have been in San Antonio at Lackland Air Force Base going through the induction process. And part of that process is once you get your hair cut and you get all your shots and all that good stuff, you go through this building where you get all of your uniforms, your boots, everything that you're going to need for your attire, your uniforms, everything. And as I'm going through the line, in the distance, I hear a song. Somebody's playing a radio. And at the time, I had never heard it before. And it turns out it was Saturday in the Park. And I knew immediately it was Chicago. And being the big fan that I was at the time, it kind of lifted my spirits. You know, when you're in the military, you're going through basic, it's your first day or two, you're not sure what's going on. And it just felt good to hear something that was familiar to me. So that was my first experience in hearing any of the Chicago 5 album. As most of you know, excuse me, I'm a big Bruce Springsteen fan. And it turned out that Bruce opened for Chicago in my hometown of Binghamton, New York, a year after I went into the military. Or I would have been there because I would have gone to see Chicago in a heartbeat. And imagine seeing Bruce open for Chicago in 1973 at the Broome County Veterans Memorial Arena or Stadium. Little side note, it's the only time Bruce has ever played the song "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." It was at that show. Anyways, this album was their first album to reach #1 on the charts. It spent 9 weeks at #1 in the U.S. It didn't do quite so well in the international markets. But on this record, even though it is a single LP, and this is a promo pressing that I've got, it came in this, of course, the iconic Chicago logo in a wood carving. And that's partly because this album was recorded at Caribou Ranch. And I'll get into a little bit more of that later in this video. But we get a custom inner sleeve. We get custom labels. We get not one, but 2 posters, which is typical of Chicago albums. Really nice posters. I used to hang them up on my wall. And then the second poster and then, of course, the hype sticker, which I always try to save whenever I can. So that's what we have for Chicago 5's, the covers and the posters and etc. So think about this. This is 1970. What was my date? 1970, June 72. So in 3 years, Chicago recorded 7 albums worth of material, studio material, and put out a 4 LP live set. So that's pretty good for a band to put out that much material in 3 years. So let's get into the music. We've got for the first song, we have a hit by Varice. It's a Bobby Lamb song. Bobby wrote 8 of the 10 songs on this album. So we get one song by Terry Kath, and we get one song by Jimmy Pankow. Now, Varice was a French-American composer who coined the term organized sound. And that's a good example or a good description of the song hit by Varice. It's very prog type of a song. So if you like prog, you're going to like that song. The next song is called All Is Well. Typical Bobby, kind of a pretty, good harmonies, nice horns, just your typical Chicago song. Then we get Now That You're Gone. Now That You're Gone is a Jimmy Pankow song, and it's really, really jazz fusion. If you give it a listen, it's out there. But that's what I love about Chicago. You're going to get a whole mix of types of music in their albums. And then we've got one of my all-time favorite songs, and that's Dialogue, Parts 1 and 2. Now, this song is broken down into 2 young people, one kind of liberal, another kind of a conservative. Maybe they're college students, and they're just having a discussion. And I'm going to read to you some of what it's about in case you don't know, because, you assume everybody knows these songs, but there's people watching this video that probably have no idea what the song Dialogue is. So it starts out with Terry Kath saying, it's really a political song. And as I've said in my other videos, Chicago is a pretty political band. So they have this discussion, and Terry says, will you try to change things with the power that you have, the power of a million new ideas? They were very big into getting the 18-year-olds to vote, because 72 was the first year that we had the vote. So the power of a million new ideas was the vote. And then Peter responds, what is the power you speak of and the need for things to change? I always thought that everything was fine. And then they kind of come to some sort of an agreement, and when they're talking together about, well, I see your point, yeah, and I see your point. And then the song goes into part 2 where they start singing, we can change the world, we can change we can save the children, we can make it happen. And they just keep repeating that over and over. And then all of a sudden the song just ends abruptly. And that's symbolic of censorship, I'm thinking. Now we get to side 2, While the City Sleeps. Kind of a doom and gloom kind of a song. Not really my favorite on this album. But then we come up to Saturday in the Park, which is another Bobby Lamb song. He had spent the 4th of July in New York City in Central Park, and he saw, jugglers, and he saw all kinds of people doing street art and things like that. And it inspired him to write this song, Saturday in the Park, which is just one of my favorites on this album. And he admits that he stole the melody line for this song from the Beatles, You Won't See Me. So when you listen to it, think of the Beatles. And then we have a song called State of the Union, which is more political. I was talking about the state of the union and how there's no one in power thinking of me. I was thinking how we ought to fix it, find a leader who is not afraid to be. Then a voice came out of the darkness saying, tear the system down. So that's probably their most political song yet of everything they've done. And then we get a song called Goodbye, which I really have no idea what it's about or what they're trying to say in this one. But it's got a nice horn jam in it. And then the last song, Alma Mater, Terry Kath's song. And to me, I get the feeling that this is him talking to the band, kind of like a quarterback talking to the team after they just won the Super Bowl, and saying, "Yeah, this was great. We got what we wanted, but the best is yet to come, and there's more. So even though we're enjoying this now, let's keep working hard for the future." So, like I said, that's the album Chicago 5, recorded at Caribou Ranch. Now, Caribou Ranch was in Colorado. It was a 4,000-acre ranch that James William Guercio bought. We'll get more into that. He was the manager and producer for Chicago. And he bought this ranch. He built a recording studio in it. And a lot of famous people have recorded there. Joe Walsh did his Barnstorm album. Rick Derringer did All American Boy. Elton John did the album Caribou. And he also did Captain Fantastic and Rock of the Westies recorded there. Chicago recorded 5 albums there. Earth, Wind, and Fire did Open Our Eyes and That's the Way of the World. America, Badfinger, Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Carole King, Deep Purple, Michael Jackson, John Lennon with Elton John. Peter Frampton, Rod Stewart, Supertramp, Stevie Nicks, the Beach Boys. You get the idea. A lot of records were recorded at this recording studio in Caribou Ranch. Amy Grant did, I think, 4 albums there, and she was on her way to do her 5th album when she got the notification that the studio had caught on fire and basically had burned up. So that 5th album never got recorded. Guercio took a long time. It was like $3 million worth of damage to it. It took a long time, but he did rebuild the studio. However, he never recorded there again. So last I've heard, the ranch has been sold off in the divisions, and it's a lot of gentrification going on there as far as I know. So that's my take on Chicago 5. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this series. Obviously, Chicago 6 is coming up next. I'll try to get that one out tomorrow. Thanks again for watching. I appreciate it. And until next time, ciao.